Have you ever felt like there's something more to life than what you're currently doing?
Do you see the world differently than everyone around you?
Do you ever dream of achieving big things but feel stuck? We're Tiffany and Sid, and we are the Cycle Breakers.
Not long ago, no one believed in us.
The people closest to me said I'd make a great receptionist.
And mine completely abandoned me and left my life.
We started our journey 5 years ago in a basement.
Now, we live our dream life in the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee. But how did we get here?
We saw a life that was much better than the one we were living.
And broke through the blocks that hold most people back.
Like self-sabotage, crippling self-doubt, and the fear of rejection. But we knew we were made for more, so we bet on ourselves to make the life that we wanted.
And jumped into a life dedicated to breaking old cycles and patterns.
And now we live on 97 acres in the Smoky Mountains. We travel the world speaking on stages, and we help a small army of people break their cycles as well.
We're the Cycle Breakers, and we break through blocks that are holding most people back so we can go live our dream life.
Welcome to the Cycle Breakers Show. Welcome back to the Cycle Breakers Show. I am your host, Tiffany Toombs. Super excited to be joined with one of my longtime clients and friends today, Josh Miller. Josh, welcome to the show.
Hey, Tiffany. Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about you, about what you do now, and then we'll get into your story.
Yeah. So I've been a roofing contractor for about 20 years. And recently I've transitioned into material distribution and consulting for roofing clients. I've operated in 45 cities and 15 states. And I've got a wealth of experience. Having done that, I've spent a lot of my time alone and on the road, moving around and experiencing different cultures and different ways of life. So I've lived in small towns, big cities, country in the South, the North, all that. So I feel like I've got a very unique perspective and a wealth of knowledge that's led me to be able to do what I do today.
Absolutely. So you have broken a lot of cycles in your journey. What would you say is the biggest cycle that you've had to overcome?
Really, my like impostor syndrome and my self-worth and my self-belief. I really don't even think I've said this to a lot of people, especially for young men. I really don't think men become men until well into their 30s. And it really wasn't until I started working with you that I was able to find my inner peace, my inner self, and confidence in who I was as a person, a man, and my individual self-worth.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about your journey, because you got into the roofing industry like young, right?
Yep.
Right out of high school or whatever that was. And the roofing industry, from the outside looking in, I get to laugh at a lot of the drama, but you've been smack dab in the middle of it sometimes. So kind of take us through that journey from, the challenges you faced to building a multi-million-dollar company to then transitioning to what you're doing now.
So I'll be honest with you. I think one of the biggest components of the roofing industry is betrayal. I think a lot of guys and girls get burnt in this business, and nobody's a saint, and we're all trying to figure it out. Being somebody who only had a high school education, I was the son of a roofer, so I spent my childhood in this business. And I did open my company immediately out of high school, and I took the Florida's roofer's exam a month out of high school, and I was licensed on my 19th birthday. And I've had betrayal from family. I've had betrayal from partners to the tune of probably close to $1 million in theft and just lost there. I've had it happen with my salespeople. I've also been a salesperson for other people and experienced, their either lack of leadership or lack of integrity. So that's something I feel like the industry has its own cycles of, and it's hard to find good leaders. Not that there aren't any, and I don't boast to be one of them, but I do think it's hard for our industry to maintain good people, because there is that constant betrayal and lack of leadership, and it's really led to I think a lot of substance abuse, depression, suicide. Some of the wealthiest guys in this business have either died a young death because of heart attacks, strokes, suicide, things like that. So that's stuff I'd like to see broken in our industry, and more normalcy, and really compliance, like under the law, and more just of a standard business model. Whereas it's typically been very transient, and there's a lot of what like to call lemonade stand roofing companies who pop up or storm chase, and they're not established in the market, and that leads to them not paying sales guys or crews, or taking customers' money. And I've seen it at all levels. And again, it's not that I've run the perfect operation, and I've crashed my business into the ground multiple occasions and had to restart. But I really think that just isn't a baseline of a healthy business model that's been adopted by our industry. So I'd like to see more normalized, and look like some of the other trades like HVAC and plumbing and things like that. Just a consistent business model that builds value into those positions for people, and that we kind of eliminate some of the riffraff and the shady characters that exist in our industry.
Yeah, so we know that money is an amplifier, right? It amplifies who you already are. So if you've done the healing work and you've broken through the cycles and you genuinely have a good heart, money is going to amplify that. If you are not maybe the most integral person, or maybe you talk about integrity being important to you, but you haven't actually defined what integrity looks like, right? Because that happens for a lot of people.
Yep.
If you've got some unhealed wounds, that's going to be magnified by money. Do you think there's so many challenges and cycles that need to be broken in the roofing industry because it is such a lucrative business? Like, there is that kind of, you can go work a storm and make millions potentially, and that attracts people who are just looking to make the quick buck?
Yeah, it also, I think you have a lot of that going on. Additionally, you almost have some guys who are essentially predators, who will bounce from city to city and take advantage of companies. I think a lot of this stuff comes down to there's a lot of shame, guilt, and other things that they're holding on to. There's a lot of the machismo and chest thumping stuff in this business that goes on, that I think is, again, a part of their root childhood, and their need to be acceptance, or their need to be viewed as tough guys. And I do try to bring some lightheartedness to this at times, but I really do try to push the envelope and challenging people's beliefs where they stand, because guys get stuck in kind of a hamster wheel of drama, and I mean, it's why you also look at so many failed marriages and other things in this business, because frankly, there's a lot of just dirty things going on. Everybody's walking in gray areas, and I think that even the anxiety of looking over your shoulder all the time or not doing the right thing is something that leads to a lot of that shame. And then, also like the limiting beliefs and that we have as individuals. Guys will hit their ceiling and sabotage their own businesses, and I'm guilty of that. And I know a lot of people who are. And we just once we hit a threshold, we don't really have anybody to turn to. And I think that's a major problem too, is that we don't really talk about the dirty secrets enough, and we don't hold each other accountable. And it's hard when you've got a lot of guys who are guys and girls who are the kings and queen of their kingdoms. They don't have accountability. Nobody's, they have a bunch of yes men around them because they pay the bills. So, ultimately they feel alone. I feel like entrapped. And I think that them holding all that in rather than seeking good counsel or having, other good roofing operators to vent to or discuss and about the things that they fear, about the challenges they face, and how it does feel so alone sometimes. I think that just leads to just guys trying to figure it out. And I have empathy for everybody, and I don't even look at the guys making mistakes and committing felonies and things like. I don't really judge them, because a lot of that is, some of it's ignorance, and then they feel trapped in a cycle of trying to keep a financial situation alive or hold on to their family, But I think it really comes down to them not loving themselves and not really even knowing who they are. So.
Okay. So you've experienced betrayal from all sorts of levels, family, business partners, employees, even employers at sometimes. How did that, before you broke that cycle? Because what I want to do is, I think a lot of people go, oh, that doesn't bother me, right? Like they pick up the bottle, they pick up some food, they pick up some weed, whatever their vice is, and they go, oh, that's behind me. I'm not thinking about it anymore. It doesn't bother me. So I want to start connecting for people, like how these old wounds will show up if we don't break the cycle. So for you, how did those betrayal cycles start showing up for you?
Well, for me, it was alcohol was probably one of the biggest. It was kind of my companion in my dark times, like repetitively. And not that I've not even been guilty of that in the past couple of years. Just I've gone through some major betrayal and loss on my business, and obviously COVID didn't help. I think anybody in some of these scenarios, but I think my recovery time and my bounce back time after having started this healing process. And, one thing, again, I've been guilty of, and I think people really, if they're going to work with somebody like you, is to realize that it's not a one and done thing. Like, you're not fixed. Like, this trauma is going to come back up even once and this has happened, with family stuff, mom and dad issues or sibling issues. And then there's also been, relationship issues that have recurred. And I've gotten better at recognizing and breaking those patterns faster. I wouldn't say I've gotten rid of them all the way, but that's also, if I'm repeating them, it's tended to be because I've been lacking in, the maintenance of my mindset, more so than, but not having the skills at all or the knowledge at all. But, there was so much freedom that came from my initial clearings with you. I broke relationships almost immediately after doing some of your meditations. I broke off partnerships, and I let go of issues with my dad, and I even discovered underlying issues with my mother that I didn't have because I had a great mom. But it just really allowed me to be free and then kind of chase after my dreams. But I do think the maintenance part of that and continuing that is probably just as important. And that would be my biggest thing, my biggest piece of advice for anybody who does work with an NLP practitioner or is doing any level of deep subconscious work and healing their trauma, is that this is going to come back up. And if you don't stay on top of it, it'll creep in and really it'll recur.
Yeah, and like you said, it does get less and less after time. It's the consistency in the beginning of pulling out those pieces and being willing to look at the pieces too, right? There are times where it's like, I have a great mom, and so I don't want to look at what might be there because, there's this sense of guilt in society of, well, my mom is a great person, or my dad's a great person, or my sister, whoever is a great person. And I think part of the healing process is recognizing that there's this duality, that somebody can be a great person, that you can love them dearly, that you can know that they did the best that they could with the resources and knowledge they had at the time, and you still didn't get a need met somewhere along the way. And that's okay. Both things can be true at the same time. And it doesn't make anybody a bad person. It's just part of this human experience.
Yeah, my relationship with my father has involved business off and on my entire adult life, and actually probably most of my childhood too. And I'm grateful for all this, like the skills and tools he gave me. But that's probably been one of my biggest things is I've had to set boundaries at recurring, and I try to reestablish those relationships too. And I will always love him, but there comes a time, I think for a lot of individuals, it's hard for them to walk away from a mother or a father. But sometimes for your mental health and for your personal growth, that if it's just setting boundaries and enforcing them, or if it's completely walking away from people, sometimes that's what it takes. And it's a difficult journey for anybody. And the same even goes probably for relationships of any kind, friendships, business partnerships. I ignored a lot of things along the way with, girlfriends and business partners and stuff that I shouldn't have. And like, I have guilt and shame over that for myself. And I feel like I should have been smarter, or I should have been this or that, or, and even with parents, it's those underlying, like, the need for approval or to win their praise. Like those things become less important when you discover, you have to start to have a healthy relationship with yourself, because ultimately I've been able to identify the manipulation tactics and the other things that people do quicker. But when you want to believe in the good in somebody, you will ignore them. And it's even when you're enlightened or you've got all this knowledge and skill now to do those things, it'll still happen to you. But I think forgiving yourself and forgiving that person, and getting to the root of it quickly and clearing it off your mental plate is going to be the best way for you to move forward and to prosper beyond that and to grow and actually be fulfilled and happy.
Yeah, it's the parent relationship is an interesting one because from from a biological level, they're the first people that we love, right? They're our first love connection. And so we learn what love looks like from them. Even if we see movies where love looks completely different, or, we see other people's relationships where love looks completely different, they are the model for which our nervous system says this is what love looks and feels like. So if that's a chaotic relationship, whether they have a chaotic relationship or you have a chaotic relationship with one or both of them, that becomes settled in your nervous system. And so we're really working against decades worth of like evidence, so to speak. And so that, that takes some time to rewire. We can definitely get there. We're now, and this is where I think, with millennials and our generation, is that we're moving into a phase where we have the understanding of how to re-imprint the nervous system. And that does take some time. And in that time, you might dip back in and try and reestablish that relationship. But there will come a point where the chaos or the drama, the manipulation, it doesn't feel like home anymore. It doesn't, you just know now that it's not normal. And that's the point where we see people just walking away from family relationships and just saying, you know what, this actually isn't healthy for me. And like, I can walk away knowing that I've tried, like that I have given this my all, and that you're just not willing to come to the party, and that's okay.
Yeah, there's, I think everybody, I mean, when you talk about like even my father, even my siblings have a lot of I have 8 siblings. They've got huge hangups about him as well. Probably every single one of us for the most part. And at some level, though, I have empathy for him because I know the history about his father that most of them don't. And sometimes I've just said to them, he's doing the best he can. This is the best he knows how to do. And just like anything else, you can't force your parents to heal themselves, or just like you couldn't force an alcoholic to stop drinking or a drug addict to stop using. At some point, if you're trying to maintain that relationship and love them, then it be healthy, then you've got to set the boundaries and enforce them and be willing to walk away to preserve your mental health. But while at the same time, that recognizing that that may not be that person's fault per se, not that they don't hold any, responsibility, but I do think that even societally, like us millennials are in just that probably kind of 30 to 45 range in general, is that we've lived different lives than most of the other generations, and we have become self-aware of our mental health issues, and I think it's actually starting to spread to everybody, but at the same time, we don't have um, I think a lot of people don't have an honest outlet. They might be aware, but they don't necessarily take action in those things, or maintain it. But I do think being able to, like, and once I started working with you, I was able to identify it in people, what their underlying issues were, and not in a judgmental way, but in like in a discerning way, and try to have empathy for them and relate to them, because I can guarantee almost everybody's got a plethora of hangups, about their childhood and everything surrounding it. So it's just funny to watch sometimes, even the dynamics in relationships and between people, other families, because you start to see it in them. And again, at some point you can become a guide, or help other people through that journey, or to like start that journey. And I just find it, I find it awesome, honestly, like that I'm able to recognize that and do that. But at the same time, it puts it in perspective for you. Like sometimes when you watch somebody else do something, they're self-sabotaging, or they're being manipulated by a family member, or somebody they love, and to get them to watch them not do it. And it's a good reminder for you to take action on yourself, because I think it's easy for people to armchair quarterback somebody else's life. And I try to give everybody as much grace as I can, because I know I'm so flawed and imperfect that even my dad, or my mom, either one, I have empathy for them most, because I know that they have done the best with the tools that they had.
Yeah, absolutely. So what have been your biggest lessons in your journey of breaking old cycles?
I think one of the biggest things for me is, as far as my old cycles go, I've definitely ended, I'd say, my relationships with with women have changed, have altered a lot. And there are similarities still in my behavior and things like that. But I was able to walk away from a lot of relationships a lot quicker, and I put more space in between, in like me time in between, looking for love again, and just being okay with myself. But that also came from healing some of the issues I had about my childhood and my family, and I started to realize so much of my behavior and how I showed love, like you had just talked about, was just how I tried to earn it from my dad, and it's the same way he tries to show love. So I'm able to recognize that, and I try to find more. Somebody, or I try to find relationships, even friendships, with people who kind of match mine, and they meet me where I'm at, whereas I'm not the one, putting in all the work. And same thing with my business relationships. I don't waste time on people who aren't on the same trajectory as me, aren't in a place of self-love, and because it's just, when you start to let that toxicity seep into your life, it's hard to not spread it around. It's what you're putting out into the universe is part of that. So for me, it's been how I see like myself in my relationships, and how, knowing that I'm deserving of love, and I've probably made better friends in the past 5 years than I've ever had, at least to like the number of people. But I'm super grateful for the people that are in my life, and the people I seek counsel from, and vice versa. And that's kind of been a big thing for me, because I've been a bit of a loner and a lone wolf in my adulthood, and simply because I couldn't find common ground with people. I was doing something that no other 19-year-olds were doing. I was doing something that, I had been through, losing a business and being $1 million in debt before I was 22. So when I was 27 and out of debt, I couldn't relate to other 27-year-olds who were getting married and having kids. And so there's times where, you're like, what's wrong with me? Why am I not doing what everybody else is doing? But in the same sense, nobody had done what I had done either.
Yeah. So if there was one message that you wanted people to take away from this episode, what would it be?
Never stop working on yourself. This is, like I said before, this is if you start your mental health journey and your mental wellness journey, and trying to strengthen your mindset, that you need to continue that work. The biggest trap is opening up these wounds and not seeing it through. I've seen the NLP therapy affect people in different ways, that either weren't ready for it, or I was completely ready to start my mental health journey when I did, and it really took some chains off of me. But along the way, I allowed some of those chains to be put back on. So I didn't undo the work, but I slowed down the healing and my growth. And my biggest regret is not being more consistent in my sessions with you and things like that, because I really just kind of, I allowed myself to fall back into old patterns, and old beliefs at times. Now, I was that close to being able to fix it almost at all times, but I had to start, and I had to actually do those things. So I just say keep going, and always keep an open mind. I'd say that the therapy that or the sessions that I've had with you is kind of life-changing, and it's nothing I've ever experienced at a human level. Just being able to delve into my subconscious and really look at where that my trauma originated from, and anything from anger to to my limiting beliefs in my self-love. And there's just so many different things I've just never, on like a physiological level, I've never been able to experience anything like this. I mean, people ask me what it's like, or what it is, and I can only tell them it's like the next level above probably hypnotherapy. Like it's definitely this kind of almost literal out of body experience, but that you're like searching yourself, your inner self, and it can be life-changing if you're ready to do the work. And I just say to everybody that if you're dealing with that anxiety, or that that feeling lonely, or that depression, that there is a root there, and there is a cause for it, and no amount of Xanax, alcohol, weed, well, any of that will solve it. There's no amount of women, there's no amount of gambling, there's no amount of anything that's going to fix that unless you do the work.
Absolutely. Well, it's been an honor to watch your growth and transformation journey. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Cycle Breakers. This channel is dedicated to giving you the tools that you need to clear out the blocks holding you back, so you can live the life that you desire. Now, before you go, as our special gift to you, we have our 7-day nervous system reset. These are the exact exercises that I give all of our clients in every single one of our programs to help them regulate their nervous system, to make that inner work and clearing out those mental blocks so much easier. The best part, it's absolutely free. Just click on the link in the description below and you'll get instant access.